And so your county mayors across the state of Tennessee can replicate what I did, call a state of emergency. So I would encourage your constituents to reach out to their county mayor and call for that, a call to action, and declare that state of emergency.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon Lewis here, founder of the Tennessee Conservative, and today we are joined by Mayor Andy Ogles. Andy is a Middle Tennessee native with deep roots dating back to the founding of our state. He studied economics and political science at MTSU, and his graduate work was done in marketing at Vanderbilt's Owen School of Management. He had a successful career as an entrepreneur in the nonprofit sector and is nationally recognized as an expert on tax policy and healthcare, having been featured in numerous publications, including the Wall Street Journal and Investors Business Daily. Andy currently serves as the mayor and CEO of Murray County, Tennessee, and it is one of the fastest growing communities in the state with a population of over 100,000 and an annual budget of just under 200 million. As an entrepreneur, Andy started, owned, and operated restaurants and real estate investment businesses for 12 years. Andy and his high school sweetheart, Monica, live on a small farm south of Columbia with their 3 children, Adley, Drew, and Isaac. When I started the Tennessee Conservative, like many Tennesseans, I was worried about the liberties and the freedoms that were being lost all across our state. Many people thought that I was out over my skis, that the doom and gloom was not going to come. Yet here 2 years later, like a prophet in the Bible, when you see tyranny coming down the road, it takes a while for it to get started, and it takes a long time for it to stop. And as I looked across the political landscape, there are really only a couple of people standing up for rights and freedoms, and one of them was Andy, and I'm very glad and happy to have you here today. I appreciate everything you're doing, buddy. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So you held a press conference yesterday, which I watched. Tell us what it's all about, bud.
Well, we've got these mandates that are, infringement on freedom and liberty. They're an unfunded mandate. So if you have workers losing their jobs, ultimately drawing unemployment, the state, you and I are picking up that tab. And of course, Dr. Piercy, for example, testified on Tuesday in Budget Committee that, Tennessee was facing an impending healthcare crisis due to an already short-staffed healthcare workforce, but now because of the mandates and people quitting and or getting fired, that they're going to have to call out the National Guard to help hospitals with staffing. And so the state of emergency was to prevent healthcare workers from losing their jobs and staving off the healthcare crisis, the worker shortage, and then ultimately defend freedom.
So it says in the Bible that the love of money is the root of all evil. And as I look at what I would refer to as like the shameful trampling of Tennesseans' liberties over the past 2 years, there's this recurring conflict between corporate money, like big, huge bags of greasy, nasty corporate money up in Nashville, and lobbyists and these groups, and they're always in conflict with the districts and the individuals. And you got this, and then on the other side, you've got the poor constituents, the people that are having to live through all of this, that aren't making billions or millions of dollars, who don't have a lot of political influence. And there's like this big behind the scenes battle that seems to me, and maybe I'm observing this incorrectly, between corporatism and conservatism. And it's just like this, and it's been like this for 2 years. What do you know about this behind the scenes battle? What have you seen, and what do our listeners need to know about it?
Yeah, and I would also say this is also a real struggle between the states and the federal government, and that's where your states, your governors really have to assert the 10th Amendment and states' rights. When you think about it, there's a contract via the Constitution between states and the federal government, and they're both sovereign. And there's a balance of powers there. And so what takes place when you have mandates such as Joe Biden is doing with OSHA, which has been overturned, and then with the healthcare system and using basically weaponizing Medicaid and Medicare, is that he's using a rule and he's renegotiating that contract. Well, you can't do that. That's the Constitution. And that's one of the things I talked about in my speech yesterday is, we have a contract with the federal government that we're states' rights, because of states' rights. And, there's nothing in the Constitution. There's no powers enumerated to the federal government to manage my health care. And so that right is retained by the states and ultimately the people. And so Joe Biden has really no authority to do what he's doing. So that's why they've drug out these dates. That's why they've kind of soft rolled this in, is they were hoping that the hospitals like your Vanderbilts would do the dirty work for them and force their employees to get vaccinated. And then those that didn't comply would get fired. And so, right now, currently, kudos to Williamson Medical. They're now accepting religious exemptions. A hospital down in Giles County is now accepting religious exemptions. I don't want to get ahead of my skis, so to speak, but there's a large hospital in Nashville that's now reconsidering their policy on religious exemptions due to what we did yesterday. And so now what we're doing is working and trying to, I hate to say it, but pressure Murray Regional, because they were going to follow the Vanderbilt model. And as of right now, it's restricted in Murray County. And if they fire a bunch of workers, that liability is going to be on them.
Guys, if you appreciate what we do here at the Tennessee Conservative, if you will go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support or hit the support button, and when you give, you get 2 Proud Tennessee Conservative bumper stickers. You can use this to patch things around your house. You got a flat tire, you're going down the road, take one of these puppies out, slap it on it, drive on. These things are so adhesive. They really are. I mean, I've seen this thing pull aluminum off of a refrigerator. I mean, they are made of something. Once you put it on there, it will never come off. I'm just letting you know, fair warning. It'll be there for eternity. If you give $50 or more, or if you make a recurring donation, you get this Proud Tennessee Conservative tumbler with all the news coming out here lately. I've had to drink a lot of cold beers out of this, and I believe it has revitalized my health and turned back the clock, and perhaps even pauses aging. I'm not quite sure what magical properties are imbued in this, but it can be yours. And we also send you this handy official directory of all your state reps and your state senators, which many of you use profusely during the special session, and that's why many of us got our medical freedoms back. And finally, if you give, or if you go to letsgobrandonhat.com, you'll get this puppy right here. And everybody wants one of these heading into the holiday season. We've only got a few of these puppies left, so if you want one, get them while they're hot. One of the big things that I heard in that very ramshackle dash to medical freedom special session we had recently, I mean, you would think something that important would be done with a little bit more care and consideration, but better that than nothing. The constant refrain was, well, hospitals will lose money. Well, federal workers will lose money. Well, so-and-so will lose money. Money. Like that was the conversations, not just like the public conversations, because they were having those, but that's what senators and state reps were telling me. And Bill Lee sat on this stuff for 10 days and let people get fired all over Tennessee instead of signing things into law. And to me, like if it's all about the money, you don't really have convictions. If your convictions evaporate when there's some money on the table, then you don't have convictions. And that leads me into my next question. I was heartened to see that you were joined by a very small core of truly conservative Tennessee leaders. I know a lot of them that feel the same way, but could not have been there yesterday. And I would refer to them as the Tennessee Freedom Caucus. And in my humble opinion, we need to have one of those up in Nashville. Why have we had to fight so hard to get our own Republican Party to simply turn back the damned clock to 2019? We're not saying we want to go back to the freedoms of 1935 and 1950, which would be great in my book, but we're just saying we just want to be as free as we were in 2019. And they act like we have asked them to land a rover on the moon. Why are we having to fight our party so hard for something that is so fundamental and guaranteed that was just happening, about 2 years ago?
Well, Dr. Piercy, she's associated with Vanderbilt, has been one of the chief advisors during COVID, and based off of her own words and the actions of our governor, she's been very pro mandates as far as masks. You had workers, some deemed essential, some non-essential, businesses, some essential, non-essential, and so I think it really is testimony to how much control that the medical that Nashville medical establishment has right now in the General Assembly and the governor's office. Now, I think there's a core group, that Freedom Caucus, that's trying to wrench that away and get back to freedom and liberty. And so, during the special session, they should have protected healthcare workers just like Montana did, but they didn't. And so that's what forced me to do what I had to do and really rely on that doctrine of the lesser magistrate and stand up for my community. Unfortunately, state law gives me the power to take actions when there's either a crisis occurring or about to occur, a threat to occur. And for example, let's say we have a round of storms coming through and the Duck River is projected to overflow. It hasn't overflowed yet. There's no flooding yet. I can declare a state of emergency to make preparations for that impending damage, right? Well, I have testimony from the chief medical officer for the state of Tennessee, who advises the governor, who testified under oath that we have an impending health crisis coming to Tennessee if we're not already in one. And so that was the trigger, or one of the many triggers, quite frankly, for me to declare a state of emergency and get ready and preempt this quite frankly. We look at a healthcare system the size of Murray County, on a ballparking this number, they could probably afford to lose about 100 staff. Keep in mind, the existing employees wouldn't get any days off. Morale would be horrible. You're probably going to have to cut, non-essential services at the hospital. We don't want to see any of that happen. I currently have around 800 or so employees just in that one facility that aren't vaccinated. It's got about a 76% vaccination rate. So suddenly, if you lose 2, 3, 4, 500 employees, a hospital is crippled. I can't let that happen. But that doesn't include TriStar Emergency. We've got NHC. We've got the other retirement community here. I have probably, give or take, around 1,200 medical employees that are poised to lose their job. So you've got the issue: what does it do to our healthcare infrastructure? Then look at the economic loss to our community when you start doing the math of 1,000 employees. And you hate to say money, 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 but we have an economy here that is built on, quite frankly, the consumer and people being able to pay their mortgages and pay their car loans. And people have to eat. And so now you have 1,000 employees that are out of their income. Most families are dual income. Most families don't have a lot in savings. A whole lot of families live paycheck to paycheck. This would be an economic and healthcare disaster in Murray County, and that's about to unfold across the state. I would implore the General Assembly to call another special session. They should have done it already. I don't think they will. I think their plan is to wait till January. I've talked to many, many legislators on this issue. They do plan to take action. They do plan to fix this, but these deadlines are going to come and go by the time that they reconvene.
Well, and that's the whole deal. I mean, we got 60 days. Why we didn't contend. And it kills me that Republicans, many of which have come around, killed legislation that would have fixed this back in the last general session.
Right.
It shouldn't have ever happened to begin with. Like this is a government created fiasco. And then the government always tries to ride in. It's like, it's like they ride through the village and they murder and rape and pillage. And then they circle around town, they change onto a white horse, and then they come through again. And usually they even make a bigger mess, which is what we have here because the government doesn't do much very well. So what do conservatives need to practically do, in your opinion, over the next 60 days as we head toward the general session? And moreover, as we get closer to the 2022 elections in Tennessee, which I think are critically important, if we had maybe 10 more real conservatives in the House and maybe 5 more real conservatives in the Senate, I don't think we'd be dealing with a lot of this stuff. So how do we safeguard our liberties and put an end to government and this corporate tyranny in the volunteer state? What can our listeners practically, physically, with their time and money do?
Well, I think one thing that should be noted, and Ronald Reagan, one of my, at least modern president's favorite modern president, one of the scariest phrases is, "Hey, I'm from the government and I'm here to help," right? And I say that as someone who's part of government, but at least what I'm trying to do is protect freedom and liberty. I think what you need to do is, on the near term, the authority right now is vested with the executives of the state of Tennessee. So when I mean executives, I mean your governor and then your county mayors. And so your county mayors across the state of Tennessee can replicate what I did, call a state of emergency. So I would encourage your constituents to reach out to their county mayor and call for that, a call to action and declare that state of emergency. and protect the healthcare workers. So that's step one. In the meantime, the governor could step in. I've been very vocal about all the continuing executive orders. I think we're on somewhere around 90 at this point. I mean, goodness gracious, executive power should be limited in scope, limited in duration. And of course, during COVID, it's been neither. But this is one of those moments, if you're going to ever justify an executive order to protect freedom and liberty, to protect the jobs of individuals, this would be it. So he could do that. And then, of course, this would be a moot point. But right now, it's really up to the county mayors to step up and protect their citizens.
Well, that is good call to action, and we will try to get our subscribers to take action on that. And to me, if you do not believe in separation of powers, you cannot call yourself a conservative or a Republican. I mean, that's like basic grade school Tennessee state civics, separation of powers. And why in the world the legislature would abdicate its authority invested in it by the districts that sent them to Nashville for somebody to make executive orders ad nauseum is still kind of, I don't get it. I would not want that to happen. It sets a terrible precedent. Andy, thank you for being on the program. How can people follow and find you? And I'll give you the last word to close us out.
Yeah, you just go to Mayor Andy Ogles 2022. It is my personal campaign page. I don't have an official page, but you can go there. You'll get a mix of politics. I'll post a little humor, family pictures. There's kind of a balance there, but I'll leave you with United States Supreme Court Justice Joseph Story, Section 416, in his commentaries on the Constitution of the United States. And this is talking about that contract between the states and the federal government, and that important balance that is struck between the two. Each, by the theory of government, is essential to the existence and due preservation of the powers and obligations of the other. The destruction of either would be equally calamitous, since it would involve the ruin of the beautiful fabric of balanced government, which has been reared with so much care and wisdom, and in which people have reposed their confidence as the truest safeguard of their civil, religious, and political liberties. That's what's at stake here, folks. Are all of the aforementioned. Your freedom to be liberal or conservative, your religious freedoms, your ability just to have a business and to be essential has been proven to be at risk these last 2 years. We must stand up. If there was ever a time to unite and to stand up and fight, it's today.
Well, Andy, it's been an honor. Thank you for all the fighting that you have done. And you're not one of these Johnny come latelys to this. You're out there when people probably thought that your prognostication would be proven incorrect, and it's been proven instead very true. I appreciate you fighting. And if there's anything we can ever do, we'll do it. Until next time, I'm Brandon Lewis. I hope you've enjoyed the program. I'm with the Tennessee Conservative, signing off.